Are you ready, Gina? You're ready.
Meeting will come to order. Please join me in a moment of silent prayer and reflection. Mrs. Fleming, will you take roll, please?
Nicole Cohen. Here. Archana Aliar.
Here.
John Maston.
Here.
Kathy Cox.
Here.
Lisa Ramon.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will read a little blurb that appears at the top of our agenda. It says, until further notice, we will be enforcing the CDC 10-person limit, and we will hold board meetings with no public attendance. There will be no call to the public. Referencing the Attorney General's March 12, 2020 opinion, we are providing an email address for questions, comments, or concerns. That email address is boardmeeting@lhusd.org. Email submissions must include full name as they will be read into the record. The meeting can be viewed live at www.lhusd.org/boardvideos. And the live stream links will be listed at the top of the page. I'll periodically repeat the email address for the board meeting so that you can submit questions or comments throughout if you didn't hear it the first time. Okay. Recognition of visitors. We have our COVID-19 update from Mrs. Aspire.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I do have a little bit of information to share with the board. We did receive an update from the Mojave County Health Department today that there have been 3 new cases today. Out of those, 2 of those are in Lake Havasu City, 1 is in Kingman, and so countywide we are up to 62 cases. Now that does include the 3 deaths, so we have 59 basically in our county. It was interesting on April 7th, when I brought you the last update, we had 23 cases in our county. As of today, there's 23 in Lake Havasu City. And so at this point in time, we are not flattening, we are increasing our number of cases. And so that is an important point in that we are not that far from our April 30th date, where our governor will be asked to make a decision about whether to extend the stay-at-home order or to move to phase 1. One of the issues that in the federal guidance is that in order to move to phase 1, there has to be a flattening for at least 14 days. And so we will not have met that, certainly after today, having that increase of 3 cases in our county. The other question that's in hand is the federal aid that's coming to states. And I'm sorry that I'm not clear on this, but I do believe that some of that is dependent upon following the federal guidelines at our state level before we actually respond to our next steps. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in our state. We do have our federal guidelines, and the guidelines I suspect that all of you have seen. If we do get reopened in phase 1, which could possibly occur, then we still have the requirement of not socializing in larger than groups of 10. Phase 2, that increases to 50, and you have to have met the same criteria again for another 14 days before you can move to phase 2. And then after that, it goes up to larger numbers from there. And so the questions that we're beginning to talk about in our district, and I know there are questions on graduation, and I repeat about this information on the COVID because that's going to impact our decisions. The other question that we're beginning to talk about is if we're coming upon the opening of school in August where we can only have congregations of 50, that's not a problem for us in classrooms. Where it becomes a problem for us at the high school and middle school during passing periods, and it becomes a problem for lunches and physical education and those kinds of courses. And so while we're anticipating that we're going to be able to open in August, which some states are not talking about, we will have to be monitoring things as we go to see, starting to plan for the contingencies that we might face upon opening school. So I just wanted you to be aware that all of those are happening right now in terms of the COVID-19.
I have a question. In the county's numbers that they reported, did they report recovery rates at all? Or recovery
Not in the
numbers?
press release that I've got. I didn't go up and check the website for that.
The reason why I ask is when we start talking about a statistical curve, it can be a very high-performing thing, which is what we're seeing now if it's a cumulative curve.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about flattening the curve, we also talk about removing those new cases or those recovered cases. And so we may actually have flattened a curve, but we don't know that because we don't have a recovery rate.
Right, and so in the actual guidance, it talks about the downward trajectory of documented cases. It doesn't actually talk about the number of recoveries. And so I'm not certain if there's some additional criteria that I haven't been aware of as far as the documented cases, but that's what's in the federal guidance.
There is some news the last day or two that people who have recovered from the virus are coming down with it again. You know, people are puzzled, doctors are puzzled about it, but they've noticed that. So it just throws things up in the air once more.
Well, I mean, just, and don't think I'm being facetious about this at all.
No, I don't.
But because under the federal guidelines, if we had one new case per week in the county of over 200,000 people, we would still be growth in our numbers and we would not be able to come out of. You would literally have to eliminate any potential new cases in any city in Mojave County for that to be a true item, and that just doesn't sound like something that anybody would be able to work their way through.
No,
It just seems like a really, really, really super item.
I think you might be mistaken. I don't think one new case would be considered not flattening the curve. I think it's if you don't have more new cases than the last data point. If I'm picturing an exponential curve, it's not a straight line.
Right.
It's, it's more data points than the last time it was recorded.
Right, but we're not getting numbers on how we're actually flattening the curve. We're just taking new case data points.
Now there is one of the guidelines that says a downward trajectory of positive tests as a percent of total tests within a 14. So if we're getting more tests, but having a downward trend in the number of positive tests, even though that's increased in the positive cases, as a percent of tests given, that may be one of the other areas that could put us into a
So do we know how many tests have been given?
I don't have that in front of me either. I was checking to see. If that is available on the county website. I apologize, I didn't bring that information with me.
Thank you.
I don't know that any of the testing tells us anything, to be honest. I know there's some frustration from some supervisors because the 65 and over cutoff, one of the deaths in Havasu was 65 and older with underlying health conditions, and that was a 90-year-old woman, and her underlying health condition was that she was 90. So I think there's a lot of scare tactics taking place with the way that they're counting cases, the way that the hospitals have been incentivized to diagnose cases of COVID. Not here necessarily. I know that those letters have gone out because I've seen them. But in order to boost numbers, to receive more funding, to diagnose somebody that hasn't actually been tested, I have a real problem with all of this. I have a real problem with the fact that our entire country has just rolled over and become a regulated police state based on the constantly changing information. We're taking direction from the WHO and the Centers for Disease Control, and they're constantly wrong. They've been wrong on everything. And I just can't believe that we're just in this position. I thought it would be further down the road.
I will share they did report that the 3 cases that were added today were all in the 65 plus range.
That's a big range.
Anything further on COVID at this time?
That's all I have.
And then I know we don't have our regular spokesperson for the LHC Education Association, but do we have any remarks on her behalf?
Unless she submitted them today.
All right, we'll move along to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on item 4.1 to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve 4.1 as presented.
So moved, so seconded.
Do I have any comments?
Martina Alliard,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
No.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Lisa Lamont,
Yes. Moving on to, 4.1.2, the approval or modification of agenda. And this is submitted by, pardon. Item 5.1, this is the first presentation and review of revisions to policy GCI and new policies GCI-RA and GCI-RB, presented by Mrs. Besta Daigle.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve the first presentation of revised policy GCI and new policies GCI-RA and GCI-RB. New policies replace existing policies GCB-A, EA, GCB, EB, and GDBA-R. We are requesting to update educational advancement policy to align with staff working procedures with board policy. Policy was written to comply with the stepped salary schedule, which we no longer use. The language is updated to reflect our current process of salary placement. The Personnel Department is also listing the increases for educational advancement and policy, which has not been done in the past. The amounts for each educational advancement have remained unchanged for over 20 years. We are requesting the following increase to the advancement amounts at 12 credits. Certified and salaried support staff from $750 to $1,000. Support staff from 35 cents an hour to 45 cents an hour, RN and LPN from 45 cents an hour to 50 cents an hour, administration from $1,000 to $1,500 at 15 credits. This is appropriate as the cost of coursework has greatly increased in the past 20 years. Policy is specific about what categories of coursework staff can be enrolled in and under what conditions courses can be taken to qualify for educational advancement. The Educational Advancement Board of Review works with the Personnel Department to vet coursework and make approvals. This team has done an excellent job ensuring we are acknowledging coursework that is completed aligns to district goals and coursework that does not comply with current policy and procedures. We are also requesting that support staff who are enrolled in college coursework leading to a position that requires ADE certification be able to earn advancement through their bachelor's degree. Currently, support staff can earn advancement up through 72 credits. Historically, between 10 and 20 staff members qualify for educational advancement each year. This has been approved by the Business Department for budget planning purposes. It is requested changes in the amount of advancement take place July 1st, 2020 to align with the fiscal year. Highlighted changes to the appointment of membership to the Board of Review, and in addition stating the governing board retains the ability to make changes to policy at any time have been made since the board work session on March 24th, 2020.
Do I have a motion on item 5.1?
I move we approve 5.1 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
Is it, Mrs. Besta, is it the membership of these boards, just to clarify for me? We're having one certified and one support staff member from each facility.
Correct.
Does that include the district office?
There's one person from the district office, yes.
Okay, so transportation would have one as well. All the sub-departments would have one. It wouldn't just be like business would have one.
Typically, there's just one from the district office. There's one certified and one classified that serves the whole district office.
And then at the school facilities themselves,
There's one from each,
one classified and one certified.
correct.
Would it be better language, at least on the certified, to make that building administrator that appoints them.
Instead of immediate supervisor.
I'm just reading immediate supervisor, and especially when we get to the high school, that immediate supervisor may be a department chair or an AP. I think our intent there was to have a building administrator
Yeah.
for the majority.
Correct.
So that's the language that says be appointed by the site administrator of the facility. Is that, yes?
Yes,
I think that means that way.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Nicole Cohen?
No.
John Maston?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Archana Aliyar?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes. Item 5.2 is the second presentation and review of revised policy JIVA, student government, and it's presented by Superintendent Sire.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This was a technical change to our policy that realigned the accurate grade spans for our middle and high school. This was brought to the board in December 17th, 2019, and inadvertently missed bringing it for a second reading at the following meeting, so it's coming back for a second reading now.
Do I have a motion on item 5.2?
I move we approve 5.2 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
John Maston?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Archana Aliyar?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
No.
Lisa Roman?
Yes. Item 5.3 is the second presentation and review of policy DJE, bidding and purchasing procedures, and it's presented by Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended that the board approve the second presentation revisions to policy DJE, bidding purchasing procedures, to increase the job order contracting amount to $2 million per project, and there have been no changes since the first reading or presentation.
Do I have a motion on 5.3?
I move we approve 5.3 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
I'm just concerned about making any of the commitments during this period. I know that this is going to be bond plus money, correct?
Correct. The bond funds, and it could come from capital and other capital source funding.
I mean, we're in uncharted territory because we're not sure what our tax base is going to look like over the next couple of years. We just don't know what anything looks like. And it just seems rather odd that we're just going to go about business as normal, especially on big items like this. I mean, it's obviously my vote's not going to stop anything, but are we thinking about that? Like, are you guys talking about that? Because
We are.
it seems like we could be in some big trouble with commitments made.
That's something that we do talk about quite often. But these are bond funds, largely will be bond funds, and that money is already sitting at the county to be used only for bond-related projects. So we can't even transfer that to another fund, should we have a shortfall somewhere else.
And this particular policy is the limit for which we can use the JOC for the contracts. This is not approving any projects for this amount of money,
Right.
although we do have some coming up further in the agenda. But those individual projects would each come to the board as well.
So this is just a policy change, and it doesn't commit any money to a certain project.
Well, it's probably the wrong time to ask the question, but it was coming up, so I just wanted to put it out there.
In this particular
Right.
action item, it doesn't commit any money
No.
because it's really more of a procurement policy than actually committing dollars to a project.
I think we're probably all thinking about this issue.
Any further discussion?
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Archana Aliyar?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes. Item 6.2
6.1.
It's crossed off on, oh, I'm sorry, this is because there's a new. Pardon. Item 6.1 is the approval of job order contracting services for elementary school improvement projects, and that's presented by Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended the governing board approve the procurement of job order contracting services to GCON Incorporated for elementary school improvement projects. The not to exceed construction costs are identified by site project shown below. As part of the district's commitment to construct, remodel, and renovate school facilities as communicated to voters and identified in the November 2016 bond voter pamphlet, the district is recommending building and site improvements to all 6 elementary schools in the Lake Havasu Unified School District. The scope of work, while not a comprehensive list, will include the following for most schools: front office security enhancements, perimeter fencing, parking lot additions and/or improvements, ADA accessibility improvements, landscaping, etc. Each of the 6 projects are listed below, not to exceed limits: Starline Elementary at $2 million, Oro Grande Classical Academy at $1.3 million, Havasu Pi at $1 million, Nautilus $600,000, Jamaica Elementary at $600,000, and Smoke Tree Elementary at $400,000. GCON will be procured through the 1 GPA cooperative contract, and the contract number is listed there. Bond capital and other allowable capital funds will be used to complete these projects, and this item has been reviewed by purchasing and the H2 group.
Do I have a motion on 6.1?
I move we approve 6.1 as presented.
I second it.
Any discussion?
This is where.
Just curious what the breakdown in bond versus capital funds is.
All that does is it provides for flexibility that should we see a need to protect bond funds, future bond funds, or that as we go into next year and we see that we're allocated a certain amount of money from we know that our DAA money is supposed to increase. So we should be getting, we qualify typically for about 2.4 million. This year we received around 1.6, so we should be getting somewhere in between that for next year. So we wanted to just have flexibility should we find the need that we need to protect capital money and then spend bond funds or do a combination of both. It also allows us to have flexibility. We're talking about protecting tax money or maybe not having as much tax money coming in next year. Where we would be able to then tap into our school plant funds, which is already cash in the bank, and that's used for selling properties or selling like transportation buses. Over the years, that's accumulated to several $100,000. So what that is doing, and the reason why that language is there, it gives me flexibility to protect certain funds should we start to see that there might be a delinquency rate coming in from the county. And it allows us to use other funds in its place. So that's why it's crafted that way. But this is what keeps me up at night. 3 months ago, I was really excited.
I bet.
Now I'm still excited, but wanting to make sure we have these types of language in place so that I have flexibility to try to protect monies that need to be protected for the future. I do have a presentation. There's a lot of slides, but they're all graphic, so we're going to just graphic meaning that they're pictures, not graphic. Poor word choice on.
Mike was here for the sex ed discussion.
So just a quick visual. These are takeoffs from the architect renderings. These are the documents that we review each week. So you can see here, these are the prescribed or the recommended enhancements for Starline as far as fencing. So you see the solid, you'll see a common theme throughout all of these slides. The solid red line represents wrought iron fencing. The dotted line represents chain link. So you can see that we're proposing in the front of our schools to make them more inviting with a wrought iron style fence. And then the back of our schools or they're kind of least viewable to make them chain link, which will still be nice. It just saves, it's definitely cost savings.
On Starline, will the new parking lot will be part of this project?
Yes, I'll get to that.
Oh,
in a
I'm
second.
sorry.
No, you're okay.
I just want to see where you found your place.
Yes, well, actually, you can see it here on the
Okay.
screen. It's right here where the basketball court is now.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna convert all of that. The basketball court's been condemned because the fence is all rotted or rusted out. The concrete's uneven, it's a trip hazard. So the kids haven't been able to use that area in years. So we're gonna rip all of that out, and there's a playground there as well. And that will become a new parking facility for staff, which would then allow, sorry for those who are on that side, that will allow this parking lot to be visitor parking. So it's close access to the front office. We're not making our parents park way around here and have to walk around the block to get to the front.
And where will teachers and staff be parking?
This will be the staff parking lot,
So
the
they'll
new
have
parking lot.
Walk up the steps
So
to get to the building?
They will have keys, so they will be able to walk across right here and straight up the steps into the back of the building to access the building.
Okay.
So it's almost, I mean, it's probably about the same distance from where they're currently parking, but because they have keys to access the facility, we wanted to make sure we weren't forcing parents to walk all the way around the front of the street. This is just a view of our current fencing situation. You can see that there's no top rail on our chain link fence around the school. Most of the fence, a lot of the fence is blown out on the sides and all rusted. This wall here, there'll be additions to the retaining wall to add another layer of capstone to the top so that we can landscape the side of the hills without, you can see here, it's already spilling out over on top of the sidewalks. And that's just always been an issue. So we're trying to keep things clean, make sure that we're as good neighbors as possible, and allow us to address a lot of these projects that we haven't been able to address in decades. Here's the parking lot scope. So you can see the red is existing parking or a drive-through area, and the green are the proposed additions and expansions. So you can see the new parking lot up at the top for staff and an expansion of the drive-through pickup drop-off area down there on the bottom near Caravel. Our goal is to try to get as many cars off the street as possible. We're never going to be able to get them all off the street, but we're trying to do everything we can as cost effectively as we can to keep kids from stepping off into the street and finding their way to the front. This is an example of asphalt that will be pulled out and replaced. This is the emergency access drive that goes from one side of the campus to the other. It's also a high traffic area for kids. You can see that it's cracked, and we've tried to repair it and repair it again and repair it again. And it's just, it needs to be replaced. It needed to be replaced years ago. That area you can see is the new ADA accessible ramp. Currently, there is no ADA accessibility from the campus up above to the playground or the play area down below. You can get to it. However, if you were someone in a wheelchair, you would probably need someone assisting you to get from that top section down to the grassy area down below. So because of all the improvements that are being made, as soon as you touch one thing, then everything else around that typically needs to be brought up to code. So we're proposing that ADA accessible ramp that you can see there in the middle, which will zigzag down from the top part of the campus to the bottom part of the campus. And you can see that the stair structures on both sides of that will now accommodate a much larger population as far as number of students there. So we have 600 and some students at that campus, and that is their evacuation route to get away from the building. So adding that second stairwell and that whole unit complex will help that school tremendously. This is the current photo of what it looks like, photos of what it looks like. You can see that on the picture on the right that the ramp the actual access point there to the staircase is heavily sloped, and that should be flat. But when you actually step foot onto there, it has a downward slant to the staircase, and that shouldn't happen. You can see the picture on the left, it's heavily cracked and weathered, it's very porous. The railings are heavily rusted at the base, so there's just a big need to improve. I'm sure that's been there since the beginning there, since when that school was built, or really close to that. The items there in red, the highlighted areas are landscaping, so we are going to rip wrap the hills with landscaping, with rock. We're not planting bushes and trees and irrigation to that to save on costs. We want to rock our slopes to not just beautify it, but to also help with erosion and those types of issues. And then front office security enhancements on all of our elementaries. This is common with all of our elementary schools. This particular school site, you can see the 2 extra boxes here. These are proposed teacher work rooms. Right now, Starline has 1 small workroom up near the front office. And with that many teachers, they all try to fight over 1 copy machine, and it's not very efficient. So we found a very low cost way to make it more accessible to teachers and allowing them to get in and get out and get the things that they need accomplished in hopefully a short amount of time. This is Ora Grande. Ora Grande, you can see the proposed wrought iron fencing and chain link fencing on that campus. We're trying to use as much existing as possible on all of our facilities. We're not just tearing everything out to tear it out and replace it. We do identify good quality and sturdy construction still, and we're trying to salvage that where we can. Front of the location, you can see there's just no fencing at all. Almost all of our facilities will have either a new parking put in there or resurfacing that will occur. So the front parking lot and the side parking lot and access way out will all be resurfaced. All of our facilities are in need of that anyways, just the basic maintenance of resurfacing our asphalts and blacktops because they weather in the sun. And every so many years that needs to be done. Again, similar to Starline, ADA style ramp. Their hill is a little bit lower than Starline's. Starline's was about 18 feet tall, I believe, so that's why that ADA ramp was much bigger. You can only have so much in slope. You can only have a rise fall of so many feet per linear feet. So this one's a little bit smaller because of the height. And because of the population there, there's only 1 staircase going up. And that's currently what they have there. Proposed landscaping areas, landscaping in the front and then along that wall, or that back wall area. And then front office improvements. I will, if this project is approved, or these projects are approved, I will come back and show detail once a lot of the security is done. I purposefully did not show everything because I don't think we need to do that. I can say our campuses are very secure, but there are some improvements that we can make, I think, just for everybody. This is how the Supai. How the Supai, again, fencing is a common theme throughout all of our schools. Security and perimeter fencing. Again, parking lot resurfacing. This school has a big retaining wall issue on the back side of their campus. The water from their backfield over many years has taken a toll on that back wall. You can see here that the concrete is just heavily weathered. The wall is starting to blow out in certain spots. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be pulled out and a new wall put in and also address the slope of the big field up on top, so that it's not draining towards the wall, it's draining away from the wall. So that just some big concerns, not just with the wall itself, but also the drainage that will be addressed within this project. Sidewalk improvements and enhancements as well at Havasu High and several other schools. You can see there as outlined in the red, also in the back of the facility. You can see there that this is what a lot of our concrete looks like throughout the district, just heavily weathered and pitted, as well as crumbling in certain areas. Again, front office security enhancements. This is Nautilus, so you can see again perimeter fencing, parking lot resurfacing, and also I think the visual on that one, but that's also like Ora Grande and Starline with an ADA accessible ramp. This is to get from, because these campuses are multi-leveled, so you have the campus up above and then your play facilities and field down below at a lower elevation, and front office improvements. This is Jamaica. So Jamaica, you see, and that's why we have a difference in dollar amounts per project, is we walked every campus. Very minor fencing in the front of the school, some fencing in the rear of the school. This one though, again, resurfacing in the red. Their parking lot in the green will actually be a complete tear out and reinstall of asphalt. There's no salvaging that. We've already tried to fill cracks for many years. The cracks are now several inches wide to where we just can't fill them anymore because it just continues to separate. So that will all be torn out, and then new asphalt will be installed and the parking lot will be restriped. Some ADA accessibility when it comes to the ramps here will be redesigned to allow kids to come down the sidewalk, cross this little fire lane to come over here and access the playground facility. So currently they're just curbs. There's no ADA accessible ramp to allow a wheelchair to go across, just a drop off on both sides. And then we will be installing a staircase that leads from the playground down to the field. Currently, there's no access to the field other than coming all the way down this ramp to the far corner of the campus until where it levels out and the grade then becomes flat with the, everything becomes flat. There's no trip hazard. Then that's how you can access the field. There are no stairways to get down. And then again, this is where they evacuate to. And right now you're funneling 500 kids down the small concrete walkway down to the field. At least we can now give them another path to pursue and getting that number of kids down and out of the building as quickly as possible. And then again, front office security improvements. And this is Smoke Tree. The Smoke Tree has a little bit of wrought iron railing that'll be put up along Smoke Tree Avenue. Right there, you see that little solid red line. There's currently a wall there now, but I believe it's only like 4 feet tall. And so we're trying to address walls or fences that are low, that are easily, where you can easily jump over them. So we're going to add about a 2 foot high wrought iron section to be put on top of the wall to make it nice and decorative. But again, we're trying to make things nice and secure without ripping down the wall and putting in something else there. We feel that the wall is doing just fine. We just need to help it and give it a little bit more height. And then you can see the chain link security improvements around the back side of the building. Smoke Tree will also have, it's not shown on here, but they will have 2 small ADA ramps that are straight ramps. They're not switchbacks because the grade isn't that severe. So they will have a small ramp on this side of the building and one on this side of the building to get down to the lower field area. And again, that's where they evacuate to as well. Parking lot resurfacing and office enhancements. Questions? A lot of slides and a lot of red lines, I apologize, but
That was pretty thorough.
I figured that if I'm presenting this to the board, you're gonna wanna know where it's going.
Lot of slides. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it was very beautiful, very good explanation. Thank you.
Lot of slides, a lot of red lines. Any of those stairs that you showed that were actually ADA compliant? Were any of them?
No, right now,
I was gonna say that, knowing that there's a cadence to an ADA compliance on stairs, even, stuff we need to do. We have a lot of special needs children in our district, and it's something we should be doing. So we're gonna spend 5.9 million.
this is not to exceed.
Okay.
So from the preliminary numbers that we've seen, it could be up as high as this, but there is contingency built into it as well. Like with any construction project, there can be the unforeseen, or we should have addressed that, and we might want to do that now since we have this open. So there is some contingency built into these numbers, but it is a not to exceed. And because of that, it is, we can dial back if we need to. We could say, well, things don't look good. We might want to stop here and maybe just push this project off until a later date. Once we get these numbers in though, and contractors are bidding based on the project, we just have to continually communicate with them what our intentions are.
Do you have a list per school of prioritized projects?
I have some backup as to what it will cover in more detail on what their proposed or what their anticipated budget is on each of those line items.
Well, the reason why I asked is because if you have a prioritized list for each school and we start getting numbers in, we could prioritize by project per school as opposed to by school itself. Because the way this is being presented is we're getting a lump sum per school.
Correct. But everything is broken down by, for example, the ADA ramp.
Right.
There's a number fixed for that. There are some things that are just lump sum, so all concrete work is lumped into one bid. But we're just gonna communicate, all of us are mindful of that, even contractors are mindful of the current unknowns. Construction is something though that just continues to move. That's just not slowing down. Again, I think we're in a good place. I'm not too worried about exceeding any type of budget. I think that because of what I put in here gives us enough flexibility to, like I said before, and I'll say it again, to really just watch and protect certain funds so that we can have a short-term and a long-term plan. And that's kind of, I've always communicated that. I've done short, where I look at the short side of things and the near and the now. And I've looked at the long term of what may be. And I think we're in a good place because there's a lot of unknowns right now. Fiscally, this district, I think, is in a really good place because we've moved at a slow and steady pace.
So like, I think the question would be like, are you gonna do internal office before you do perimeter fencing and choose?
We're not that far
Right,
in the conversation.
But just you've got a pecking order as to what your highest priorities are at each school.
Correct.
And then last question from me. We've already sold the bonds. And because we've already sold the bonds, we're committed to that contractual arrangement with the bondholders, correct?
Correct. The cash is sitting in the county already, and then by law, per the IRS, we have to spend down so much of that within 3 years to make sure that that we're using bond monies as we intended to do so. That we didn't go out and bond and then save all the cash and collecting interest on it.
So there are going to be people who are watching this who are going to say, well, why don't you just take the money and give it back to the bond people and then we're out of it? And that's not how that works, is it?
No. We could do that now with debt service.
Right.
We could, at the end of, like we did a couple of years ago, we took the remaining debt service that was sitting in that account, and then because the board voted on that, we gave that back to the property tax owner in the form of a tax reduction for that.
What is your timeline for this?
The majority of this at the elementary level should be done before school starts.
And when do you hope to begin? I mean, I know normally you begin in the summer, but is there any possibilities with the situation we're in that some of it could begin before then?
I just got off a conference call probably 15 minutes before I walked into here with this contractor and everyone involved with it. They will now, if this passes tonight, they'll wait for the purchase order tomorrow, and then they will proceed to put the documents out to bid. And they're anticipating about 2 weeks for that. So they believe that it would happen towards the middle to end of May, where we can start to see the prep work and then the construction begin.
Great.
And there's nothing preventing them from starting as soon as they're ready. Is that correct?
Correct. At the moment, that's correct. We have weekly meetings and sometimes more than that, just to like the updates from Mrs. Asire today. We're just constantly monitoring the updates.
Any further discussion? I think we're ready to vote.
Archana Aliyar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.2 is the approval of the elementary school's student handbook for 2020-2021, as presented by Superintendent Asire.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It is recommended that the governing board approve the 2020-2021 elementary schools student handbook. There is one unified elementary school student handbook for all district elementary schools. Havasupai, Jamaica, Nautilus, Oro Grande, and this should say Classical Academy, my apologies, Smoke Tree, and Starlight. The handbooks are available online for student parents and staff, and they are also provided for them in paper form should they like request those. A copy of this was provided electronically to the board, and on the back side of the memo, it gives you the very specific changes that were made this year. Most of you are aware that over the last couple of years, the elementary principals have spent a lot of time revising the handbook. And so at this point, there are just a few technical changes that were made.
Do I have a motion on item 6.2?
I move we approve 6.2 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Archana Aliyar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.3 is the approval of the Thunderbolt Middle School Student Handbook for 2020-2021, and this is presented also by Superintendent Asire.
Thank you. Again, this is the Thunderbolt Middle School Handbook for 2021, and it is recommended the board make the recommended changes. These changes are technical changes, and those are available for the board also on the back of the memo. There are just a few small changes. The majority of the handbook is as approved last year.
Do you have a motion on item 6.3?
I move we approve 6.3 as presented.
A second.
I do have a question though. On the summary on the back of the action item, on page 40, the school suspension, why did we reference the high school? Why did we need to take that out?
We actually had a system in place where the students could go over to the high school to serve their in-school suspension, and they actually discontinued doing that, and so they took it out of the handbook as one of the options.
Thank you.
Because Mrs. Bitterman will be serving as principal of the middle school next year, was her input also considered as part of this process? The updating
Yes.
process? Yeah. Any other discussion?
This is also provided in paper form.
Yes. Are we ready to vote?
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Archana Aliyar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.4 is the approval of contracted services through Educational Services Incorporated for subsource program. And this is presented by Mrs. Vesta-Daigle.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve the contract for services with Educational Services Incorporated for the subsource program for the 2021 school year. LHUSD is recommending the continuation of contracted services through ESI. Had LHUSD employed long-term substitutes during 1920, our cost for healthcare benefits and accrued leave would be approximately $45,000 for the year. Through March 4th, LHUSD has spent $424,290 with ESI for subsource. ESI provides substitute fares throughout the year to grow the certified and classified substitute pool. They also provide training and onboarding services that are determined by LHUSD to align with our goals. ESI currently provides 93 substitutes for LHUSD. Employers must continue to permit employees to accrue and use up to 40 hours of paid sick time per year. ESI will continue to track this benefit and pay for all eligible sick time without impact to the eligibility of substitutes for the district. Our substitutes will continue to work with our sub-coordinator and use Frontline to accept jobs. Our teachers and administrators will continue to be able to request substitutes through Frontline, work with our sub-coordinator, and provide feedback. Costs to the district will continue to be 10% of daily substitute pay. ESI is currently on the MES contract. The number is there. This contract has been reviewed by purchasing and legal.
Do we have a motion on item 6.4?
I move we approve 6.4 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
We originally undertook this contract with the thought of cost savings. And while I understand the $45,000 in healthcare benefit and accrued leave, are we still saving money over having subs in-house?
Yeah, so that's what it would cost us. So if we had subs in-house, that $45,000 would be paid because we would be providing our long-term subs that cost.
I understand that thought process, but so you're saying that it would cost us $290,000 plus $45,000.
Correct,
If we brought it in-house.
correct, I am.
Any other questions or comments?
Kathy Knox,
Yes.
Archana Aliyar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.6 is the approval of one-time exception to policies GCO and GDO. And this is presented by Mrs. Vesta-Daigle.
Madam President, please move it over 6.5.
I'm sorry. Picking over a lot of things tonight, sorry about that.
Ms. Staples, are right.
Item 6.5 is the approval of performance pay for qualified teachers and administrators for 2019-2020. And this is presented by Mrs. Vesta-Daigle.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve full payment of performance pay for classroom site funds and administrator performance pay for the 2019-20 school year due to school closure. Performance pay plans were approved by the Governing Board in August and September of 2019. These plans were implemented, but due to school closure, are not able to be completed. Eligible teachers are not able to complete their 301 plans as they do not have the school year to complete their individual rubrics for activities outside of the school day, are not able to give post-assessments to measure student growth, and may not have completed required professional development hours. Not all teacher evaluations were completed, and plans are in varying degrees of progress by site. Administrator plans are in progress but not completed. Teachers have completed their survey of administration, and administration did meet in all areas. Some sites have completed their peer observations. Parent surveys have been distributed, but not all have been collected. Given the extraordinary circumstances and the hold harmless language of legislation signed by the governor, we ask that performance pay is approved for all eligible employees.
Do you have a motion on item 6.5?
I move we approve 6.5 as presented.
second.
Any discussion?
This is keeping with the state edict, I take it.
So the state has been very clear that it is local control. This is the one area where we get updates all the time, and it has come down again and again that it is for the board to decide how they want to do this. The recommendation that legal has given us has been this recommendation, and so both of these items, this and 6.6 were crafted with legal counsel.
So the state has told us through legislative action that they are going to fully fund the performance pay.
Yes, so they've already set the amount and they are going to fund it.
But I have heard that around the state that it's not the norm, that it is being withheld.
Correct. I mean, and it's going to be based on sales tax revenue. And so we are, we are aware, and we've seen that in 2008 when the economy changed. So, we see that it fluctuates.
So while the numbers may change, I would like to share, and this is an area, Mr. Manston, in a couple of these areas where we're actually, the performance pay plan was board approved. And so not every district has the exact same performance pay plan that we have. And so that's where each district, the governing board is the only group that can exempt its own policy or waive its own policy. So that's where most of these are coming back to you for either to waive our current policy and just honor the information from last year. So.
Right, but my point of clarity there was that, we've got the money. It's not a question of is money coming in for this. It's just a matter of we got caught short on a year with actual time in the classroom. And so now we have to amend our policy.
And the funds come in monthly. Supposed to come in monthly. But it's been our practice within the district that we pay out based on what we receive. So before the next payout, which will happen by June 30th, I will calculate everything that came in since the last time we paid out, and those monies would then be distributed by those who have qualified for it. Usually it's 268 full-time staff or whatever it is, but we don't, and then that's what causes the carry forward into the next year. And typically the state will pay up to like April. They'll pay us April and June, and so May and June will then be distributed in November of the following year because we don't receive that until after June 30th. So we pay out based on what we receive and what hits the bank at the county. So that way, in case we do have a shortfall and the state stops funding it regularly, we'll be paying out based on what we receive.
And in this case, we're not truly amending policy in any way. We're just voting to approve upholding a previous policy that we put into place, even though teachers weren't able to fulfill their end of things because of the circumstances. Is that correct?
Sort of. Some of the information would be using last year's data though, because we don't have this year's data.
Any other discussion?
Archiana Aliyar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Lisa Roman.
Yes. I did say at the beginning of the meeting that I would recite the email address occasionally so that people who might just joining us have it. It's boardmeeting@LHUSD.org, and you can submit questions or comments, and they are being monitored and will be submitted to us.
Mrs. Roman, may I ask, has Mrs. Vestager received any emails yet?
I have prior to the meeting.
Okay. I didn't know how you were.
If I may suggest that if they're not related to the board agenda items, that after the end of those, could those be read before we address the informational so that we have opportunity to address any of the questions that may be raised?
I think that's the appropriate way to do that, unless you have questions that are on specific agenda items. Okay. Moving on to item 6.6, and that's the approval of one-time exception to policies GCO and GDO, presented by Mrs. Vestager.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve a one-time exception to policy GCO, staff evaluation, and GDO, support staff evaluation. Teachers will use their most recent evaluation scores for purposes of renewal and evaluation scheduling for 2021. Based on legal recommendations regarding school closure, and in order to meet state laws regarding evaluation, LHUSD will use the most recent summative evaluation as a final evaluation for a teacher. Staff will receive the school letter grade for 25% of their evaluation score to determine their final evaluation score for future evaluation purposes. Classified staff who are not evaluated will not be evaluated unless they are new employees and have reached their 90-day probation. Supervisors may reevaluate these employees before placing them on the personnel report for board approval. This item has been reviewed by legal counsel.
Do I have an item for a motion on item 6.6?
I move we approve 6.6 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Fox,
Yes.
Martina Alliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Item 6.7, temporary revisions to policies GCCG-EA and GCCG-EB, professional staff voluntary transfer of accrued sick leave, and regulation GDF-RB, support staff hiring. And this is presented by Mrs. Vestavegal.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve temporary revisions to policies GCCG and GCCG regarding professional and support staff voluntary transfer of accrued sick leave and regulation GDF-RB support staff hiring. The temporary revisions will end June 30th, 2020. In light of recent events, LHUSD is looking to support staff who is in need of additional sick leave. This leave is separate than leave that is required under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which entitles staff with qualifying reasons to an additional 10 days of pay. Currently, according to regulation GDF-RB, support staff must wait 90 days and pass probation before using accrued or earned sick leave or any fringe benefits. We are requesting to waive this waiting period for new staff. Staff members can use accrued leave sick time immediately upon hire. We're requesting adjustments to policies GCCG and GDCG sick leave bank. We will increase the limits on sick leave donations and allow staff to donate up to 10 days if they have at least 30 days of sick leave, 20 days if they have 60 days, and 30 days if they have at least 90 days accrued. Currently, there is a 100-day maximum of sick leave usage. We will lift this maximum for those who are in need of extra days related to their illness. The superintendent or superintendent's designee can grant an exception to go beyond the 100 days for a staff member. There are a number of staff members who are out with serious illnesses this year who are nearing their limit. These policies do not apply to staff who are able to work remotely, only those who are not able to work because of an illness. In the future, the Personnel Department would like to bring back the sick leave bank policies to the Governing Board for review to better meet the needs of our district.
Do you have a motion on item 6.7?
I move we approve 6.7 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
I just have one question. So, I just want to know or be assured that nobody's going to be contacted who has 100 days and specifically asked to donate to anybody. That's it. I mean, it's fine if you want to donate, but I don't want anybody being contacted. I want to make sure that wasn't.
No, and our policy really keeps us from doing
Yeah.
that. It is anonymous. You're not allowed because someone works in the same building. It's protected both ways.
Okay.
So you don't know who donated those days to you,
No, and you don't know who you're donating to because of HIPAA regulations.
any requests.
There is typically a generic email sent. So
I've seen it.
Right, not specifically to staff who have certain numbers.
Right, no, I understand.
Any further discussion?
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Fox,
Yes.
Martina Alliar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Okay. Item 6.8 is the presentation and review of policies GCQE, retirement of professional staff members, GCQEA, retirement of professional support staff members, post-retirement employment option that we'll refer to as PREO, and GDQC, retirement of support staff members. and this will be presented jointly by Mr. Murray and Mrs. Festadable.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended the board approve the first presentation revisions to policies GCQE, retirement of professional staff members, GCQEA, retirement of professional support staff members, post-retirement employment option and freedom, and GDQC, retirement of support staff members. On February 18th, 2020, the governing board took action to accept a resolution to dissolve the Lake Havasu Schools Employee Benefit Trust and accept an invitation to join the Northwest Arizona Employee Benefit Trust. This action required the district to review the proposed benefit premiums for active employees and retirees, as well as district policies associated with these benefits. Upon review from district staff and legal counsel representing the district and legal counsel representing the benefit trust, the following policy changes are proposed as shown in the backup documentation. This item has been reviewed by the business office, personnel, and legal counsels, and you do have an updated revision, a revision of the revision in front of you to consider for the first read. This was just given to us from the NAEBT's legal counsel late this afternoon as we've gone back and forth. The option, what we're really trying to do here before you open it up for discussion is to just provide clarity. The more we look at it, the more questions that come up, the more opportunity for us to go back and try to make it more clear. So this is something that may not even be perfect this go around, but this is the first presentation.
Do I have a motion on item 6.8?
I move we approve 6.8 as presented.
Second.
Before we get into discussion, do we have any emails that relate to this particular item? No? Any discussion or questions? I've spoken with one employee who would like some clarification with the 70% of retirement benefits that will be paid. Is that 70% based of the retiree rate, 70% of COBRA, or 70% of active employee rate?
The change to policy in GCQE as well as GDQC, it states that it would be the district will pay 70% of medical, dental, vision, and life insurance premiums of the lowest price retiree only plan. So if you elect COBRA, COBRA does not offer life. COBRA is strictly medical, dental, vision. But the way it's worded here, it says the lowest price retiree only plan. Again, this was part of going back and forth because the more we discuss it, the more questions we have and the more clarity we want to bring. So it states the retiree only plan here as worded. While my thoughts would be just 70% of the COBRA rate, because if they elect COBRA, it would be 70% of that. But again, you're getting down to 3 words here, and I just want to make sure we're crystal clear, because we're all going to get these questions, and I want to make sure people can refer to policy and know exactly what they're getting. The way it's currently written, it says retiree only plan. So at the lowest price. So the way it's currently written, it would say, to me, if I'm reading that, I would say that it's 70% of the retiree only high deductible health plan, whatever that dollar amount is. So if you elect COBRA coverage, it's actually going to be more than 70% of the COBRA premium because the retiree premiums are much higher.
So that amount would just be applied to their COBRA.
The way it's currently written, and if we're going to remain consistent, then I would say as long as I don't think we as admin have really even had a chance to talk about this because these things are coming so quickly to us from legal counsel. As it's currently written, that's how I would interpret it, that it would be 70% of the, next year it's the high deductible health plan that's the lowest. It would be 70% of the retiree only high deductible health plan premium. Regardless if you elect COBRA or you elect to stay on the retiree, district offered retiree plan.
Do you think we could make the language a little more precise about what you just said, that it would be the, not the active retiree, but it would be the retiree?
Well, it does say that here. It does say the district will pay 70% of medical, dental, vision, and life insurance premiums of the lowest priced retiree only plan.
Okay.
And now, if we wanted to do 70% of COBRA, then I think that that should be added in here. It should be very clear that if you elect COBRA coverage, then it's 70% of the COBRA premium.
Okay.
Right now, that does not say that.
So then what would happen to an employee who elects COBRA rather than the other? What would happen to that employee?
So then it would be calculated, COBRA is 102% of the active rate, active employee rate. So then we would just take this, whatever 70% calculates out to be in a retiree only high deductible health plan, we would take that dollar amount and then credit it towards the COBRA premium. So their savings would actually be more.
Okay.
But these are things that we might need to still continue to talk that over and as
Well, that's what I
admin.
was talking about, is making, if we're going, if you decide to do that or not do it, and then if we decide to do it, it needs to be in here. So.
It does, I totally.
Kind of the overarching principle is that good fences make good neighbors, and so having these very clearly spelled out for those different circumstances, I think would be helpful.
And you'll see that there's an attempt in policy GCQEA. You'll notice that on the last page, you see two new blue additions there, bullet points. But then again, in having further conversations between ECA and legal counsel, they added 3 more bullet point sections and highlighted it yellow. And a lot of what's spelled out in those yellow sections actually bring a little bit more clarity to the 2 blue ones up above. So we probably will have to look at that and strike those 2 blue paragraphs up above and leave the 3 highlighted ones below. Because if you look at the blue section, it says that if you retire or you elect a the PREO option, that you have to elect COBRA health insurance benefits. So that's not true. You have the option. You can elect COBRA, or you can elect to just go ahead and start participating with the district retiree premium. The way it's worded is kind of pushing you at the COBRA only option. But there's risk to doing that.
Yeah.
So that's why you see where it's in those 3 yellow paragraphs, it's spelled out more clearly, and that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to make sure that it's just crystal clear in fairness of the district personnel, but most importantly, in fairness to the employee when they're trying to make an informed decision as to what do I do. I want to retire. What are my options? We don't want people to try to interpret policy. We want to make sure that they can read it and say, that's what I want to do. I'll take the risk. That's what I want to do because that's more affordable. That's the more affordable plan. But I know that there's a risk associated to it, but I'm okay with it. Or I don't want the risk and I'm going to just take the district offered retirement.
It's the only risk that the employee goes on PREO and then it's not rehired by the district the following year. Is there any other risk?
That's the only risk.
So would there be a problem with having the risk put in the policy?
It does say that down here in the yellow section. That's where we're getting more clarity that you forfeit district benefits if you elect COBRA coverage and you're not rehired with the district.
Okay,
And
I'm
you
sorry.
forfeit those
Sorry,
benefits.
So,
Oh, I'm on the wrong, okay. All right. Okay, good, thank you.
the yellow sections are much clearer, I think.
Yes.
And I think up here in the blue section, what it's trying to say is, but basically you don't want someone leaving at the end of the year and then just kind of taking their time deciding between COBRA and retirement benefits.
Correct.
Yes, so it's meant to address that, but then it does make it sound like you have to go on COBRA.
In that second yellow paragraph, that kind of clarifies it more. It does say retirees who do not immediately upon retirement elect to obtain insurance benefits through either COBRA or the district's retirement plan. It talks about how they then forfeit their future benefits.
Is there a way to put this on the screen so that people who are viewing from home can see the document? No?
We'll send this out. Mrs. Fleming sent the board packet to everyone because of this. So I think that it's only fair to send this out too, so that people can actually look at it and see what proposals are being made by legal counsel. Again, it's all comes down to just making it clear. I think most people know that there's a risk and there is a choice, but we want to make sure it's just in written form so that nobody just interprets it and makes a bad decision.
I do think it might be wise to put into policy to address that risk for an employee who submits to PREO or submits for PREO and is approved. If the district is hesitant about that person's place in the district following that interim year, it might be wise to be upfront about that with the employee, because that would help them better assess their risk of not being rehired at the end of that interim period. Is there a way to address that, or some sort of statement of good faith on the district's part?
I think that that's already considered in accepting the individual, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that's already part of the process in approving that person to come back on PREO. I think if there was a question about that person 2 years from now, that would be addressed immediately and even granting them the PREO to come back from the beginning. And maybe I'm wrong with that.
Not every retired person is offered.
Correct.
That's
Got
right.
it.
That's correct.
I do think we could clarify, however, in the actual PREO application that if you are not reelected and you do not choose to take the retirement benefit now, you will lose that retirement benefit. So that's stated very clearly in the PREO app. That would be a statement that would be helpful. As far as making a commitment, we can't. We don't know what positions, what enrollment will do and so forth. But in most cases, I can't think of an example where we haven't hired our PREO people back.
And we do have ECA created a nice flow chart that will be used as part of the packet so that people can see that if this applies to you, then here are the choices you can make. And if you take this route, this is where you're going. And if you take this route, then this is what's available to you. So we tried to also not just put it in writing, but create a visual for people, because I like visual things too. So we're trying to just really attack this from all angles. This is tough. This is a tough decision for people, and we want to make sure that, like I said, that we're giving them the best information that we have.
So that eases my mind. I just want to make sure that everyone is protected and going into this with clear eyes.
Now, I do have a recommendation. Going back to the first policy on page 2, I'm talking about the technical language of the lowest priced retiree only plan. My advice would be to keep that language so that it's a consistent amount for each retiree. As you're looking at, if we were to say, well, we'll pay 70% of this or 70% of COBRA, there's a couple of things that happen. One of them is it may disadvantage employees who are going on COBRA because they're actually going to get less toward retirement because the COBRA plan will cost less. And then the other piece of this will be that we will get concerns as we have over time in terms of the equitability of everybody getting the same opportunities, because a regular retiree does not have the option to pick COBRA. and be fully covered at 70% rate, continuing, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so it makes it cleaner, it's cleaner for the business department, every retiree is entitled to this dollar amount that can be calculated based on the plan each year. That would be my recommendation.
I'm sorry, so what, you said it's on page 2?
Right, where it says, that, the retiree, the district will pay 70% of medical, dental, vision, and life insurance premiums of the lowest priced retiree only plan.
Near the bottom of the page, it's the second to last paragraph, about the third line.
Yeah.
The third line from the bottom of that second to last paragraph.
Yeah, that's it.
GCQE policy.
What it's doing is it's funding everybody equally. And so you can pick gold plan, the high 80-20, however it's worded in our district. Or you can have a high deductible health plan, or you can go to COBRA, but this is the amount of money you're going to get. And choose what it is you want to do based on that.
And it's simple.
Very simple.
Yeah, if we start adding COBRA language, it's 70% of COBRA and then 70% of the, we want to be clear, but we don't want to make it to where it's just too detailed that we just can't follow it then at that point, so.
Well, I think.
I agree, I think it as written is, would be my vote as well. Not that this is a voting session here on the policy, but how it's written would be how I would interpret it in the business office.
Now, when would, the staff will get this tomorrow, the revision, that the one you gave us tonight? And then will you put a statement in that there's a revision of this section as stated by Mrs. Desire?
Well, my directions will come from Mr. Cody. There is some cleanup on this that I have to do. I noticed states.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
typos and yeah, so it'll, this
Just came
definitely.
a few minutes before the
Yeah.
meeting tonight.
My recommendation is we should get into a final form for the second reading before we send it out. I think that's the fairest way to go.
But staff will get it.
Get,
Well, before the next board meeting.
right, but let's get all the lawyers in, let's get all the concerns into it, and then let's let everybody read it. And, you know, if they have input, bring it on.
Well, I like to, myself, I like to compliment you because you've taken something that's pretty complex and all of you have whittled it down to make it much more simple and easy to understand, so thank you.
I want to thank the group that worked on this as well. We're going to be putting more money for insurance benefits into our retirees' hands. This solves a long-standing problem in that health insurance benefit that we've had. And it also makes a statement that the governing board is the one who's in charge of the policy, and there are going to be some reasons why it may need to be revisited in the future. But it puts that back into our hands as a governing board.
Good point.
I was able to watch the NAADT presentation last week, and I thought it was very clearly presented. So yes, I'll echo what they said about thanking you and your team for putting together something that was so clear. I did have one more question, and this might be getting too deep into the weeds for this particular meeting, but the date is changed for this year only to where someone has to declare by June 30th, whereas normally they would declare by June 1st. Is that correct?
Has to declare that they're retiring.
Whether or not they're opting for retirement only or COBRA.
March 1st. I thought we had
I
July.
thought there was some discrepancy on the date, like a month difference because of the adoption into the NAEDT. I could be mistaken on
I
that.
saw something, maybe it was in this packet.
There's a date change from January 31st to March 1st, but that's having to do with retirement. to the personnel office, submitting that in writing to personnel. The date was moved from January 31st to March 1st.
It wasn't that one though, I was thinking of the month of June.
I do know that we did allow people to either reconsider their retirement date as well as whether they wanted to go on PREO because of the change in the policy and the change to NPDT.
Okay.
And so we did allow people to submit if they wanted to do so based on that information. That may be what you're thinking?
It could be, yes. So this will be it will be cleaned up and then it will be distributed to stakeholders prior to our next meeting. Are we planning on revisiting this in May? Yes. Is there any further discussion?
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Martina Alliar,
Yes.
Nicole Keller,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.9 is the first presentation and review of policy KCD, public gifts and donations to schools, and this is presented by Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended that the board approve the first presentation of revision to policy KCD, public gifts, donations to schools. Revision was made at the suggestion of our district auditors and has been approved by our legal counsel.
I move we approve 6.9 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So if crowdsourcing is the process of obtaining needed goods, services, and ideas or content by soliciting contributions. So did we ever get a list from all of the schools about the needs, the classroom needs? Because so we have this policy that it's okay, but I never heard the follow-up to that question, and I know it was asked. So.
that was the, whatever question needs list.
Well, we have a list of what we will supply to, in every classroom, that will supply so many desks, we'll supply desks and chairs and whiteboards and those things, but
Right.
It could probably be addressed again, looked at again and distributed, but we did address that some time ago and give each site that this is what the district will supply as far as your basic needs.
I would love to see that. Did we see that? I don't remember seeing that.
I don't believe.
I don't think it
Okay.
came to the board, that was just something that we put together.
I'd kind of like to see it too.
Yeah, well, because the last time we had this conversation, I think it was Ms. Triasi was telling us how she was crowdsourcing for
Basic needs.
basic needs. So I want to know what we're including for basic needs. Maybe off the subject.
Any further discussion?
Martina Alliar,
Yes.
Nicole Keller,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes. Item 6.10, the approval of EduLink Systems as parent communications and app provider. This is presented by Mrs. Festadale.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve EduLink Systems as the provider for the LHUSD Parent Notification System and Parent Mobile Application. LHUSD currently uses Blackboard as our parent notification system. Although the system is functional, we're looking for a system that integrates with our student management system more efficiently, supports group notifications, and provides support from the United States. EduLink system integrates with Synergy, our student information system provider for parent contact information, and School Insights, our website provider. We will be able to send mass communications out via text or email, and can send communications out to specific groups of parents easily. In an emergency situation, the system can work with a website to send out consistent information without multiple reentries. EduLink Systems also provides a mobile parent application that will be customized for LHUSD. We will be able to link our district website, social media, website for meals, parent notification, bookstore links, calendars, and other LHUSD specific links together under one app. This will keep our school community connected. The EduLink Parent app will work with our school website and support users using their mobile devices. The LHUSD website is being updated through School Insights, our current provider for the 2021 school year. The cost for the mobile parent app will be under $5,000, and the parent notification system will be under $7,000. The cost is reoccurring except for one-time setup fees. We currently pay $8,300 for Blackboard annually. Information about EduLink's data security measures are attached.
Do you have a motion on item 6.10?
I move we approve 6.10 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion?
So, yeah, I'm curious why it's important to move to this now,
So,
besides the website being retooled.
So Blackboard just hasn't been really good for us. So there's two parts to this. One is the parent notification system, and the other is an app. And so Blackboard doesn't function great. It is headquartered in Germany, and so typically help arrives at 2 o'clock in the morning the next day. And it's really difficult for groups to be created. And so our administrative assistants do not use Blackboard's pretty difficult for them to use. You can also see when you get some Blackboard messages, there's some weird digits that come up, and so we would like to leave Blackboard. The reason why we brought this to the board is we would like to move to an app that would bring all of the things that as a parent that is spread all over my phone into one place. And so right now I have an app to pay my students' lunches, and I have an app to go to my students' gradebook, and I have an app to go to the website. I have an app to pay tax credit. I have an app, and so we're trying to make it easier for parents so we can communicate with them more effectively. This event that happened has highlighted the importance for us to communicate with parents in an effective manner. More so than ever. And so I think in the early days of this, you saw all sorts of different information going out in all sorts of different ways. And so we really feel that it's important that we can tailor it to communicate effectively. And so, you know, the app is nothing more than an extension of our website. So parents have one place to go to look for information about LHUSD. As it stands right now, all of that is all over my phone, but I have to search and go, what is the name of the school website, the school food provider? How do I pay Lane's lunch? And we're constantly doing that. And so this will just bring everything together.
So how can we get an agreement? How can we just got like a generic overview? This isn't the actual agreement that we're entering into, correct?
There's the agreement.
The agreement's on the back.
The data security and confidentiality agreement
Yes.
is constantly referencing underlying agreements. So are there more agreements?
As far as a contract.
And then my concern is, I understand what you're saying about how it'd be nice, but I don't understand the need for the social media integration. I think that's, especially during this time, knowing what we all know about what's going on with social media, you know, why we would want that integrated into this feature. If we're gonna say that we can't communicate with parents without social media, our problems are much bigger than not being able to pay for lunches.
And so we looked into that. So it is not full Facebook. It is like you see Facebook on our website. And so it is just a listing of all of our Facebook posts. And so if you look on our website, you can see all of our posts from our different social media.
But this is saying unlimited account, or unlimited social media account access, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. What's the etc.?
So,
I actually don't see which subsection are you speaking of.
I'm looking at the price proposal on page 2.
so I think I understand what you're saying. The thing is this is not an interface point the way that you're thinking of social media. This is, we publish information on social media, we publish information on a website. We have vendors that we use to collect student lunch money. We have calendars, we have all of these disparate things. And the idea of the app is to bring all of that display information into one place. So that you then, if you choose, click on a Facebook post and go to Facebook. Click on a website link to pay a bill for your kid's lunch. Or look at a calendar on our website. It's more of a disqualifier than it is an actual interface with Facebook.
So to follow up on, because I think Nicole's question is good, if a student uses the app and goes to Facebook to get to the district webpage, from that Facebook page can the student access anything else on Facebook?
The way that it's set up to work right now is we would create the app. It will have just little icons, just like you see on your phone. And on that app, we would link just to our Facebook feed. When they click on that link, they have already determined in their phone if they're using a web browser or if it's leaving and going to the Facebook app that they've already installed on their phone. So it doesn't, we don't portal them through Facebook. We don't do any of that. They can see our feeds that are on the LHUSD 1 Facebook page. That's all they see. If they go outside of that, then they're surfing the Facebook on their own phone and going to their own pages.
And then it would be our choice as to whether to include Twitter.
Yeah, we can put any icons on there that we want.
Okay.
And no parent would need to download this, choose this. They could still pay for lunches however they want to.
Right.
This is just a way to have that all together.
It centralizes all the channels of potential communication. And so when you get to the social media end of this as well, if you have a button that you push and you go to Facebook, you still have to have an account to even go in and look. It's not that that content is automatically going to show up in your browser. So if I, as a parent, tell little Timmy that little Timmy can't go on Facebook, and little Timmy doesn't have an account, little Timmy can push the button all day long. He's not getting into Facebook.
And then this is available on all platforms, Android, iPhone, everything like that.
Correct.
And let's see.
Just not Motorola Razr.
And it might not be.
And so the cost for the parent app, the parent will download it, and that would be free for the parents. Okay. The cost to the district to create this app will be under $5,000.
Yeah.
Now, will that a yearly fee of $5,000 be incurred?
The 5,000, I believe that's even maybe a little high. It's a one-time cost.
Okay.
And then each year after that, I think it was somewhere around $2,500 a year to renew the subscription to the app.
$29.95.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the parent notification system, that is a yearly renewal of $7,000, under $7,000. That's typical. Okay.
And actually, the parent notification system, once we pass the first year, is around $6,094.
Okay.
So just as a parent notification system comparison, it's significantly less than Blackboard. So the reason that we go up a little bit is by adding the app for parents, if the board chooses to do this. I do want to reiterate that the Blackboard system is not working for us. Some really good examples, some of you will remember, we've had a couple of instances where we've had either a bus breakdown, or we had an incident on a bus where it was detained because the student had the BB gun, and we couldn't identify a group based on who rides that bus. And so we had to go in one by one and create so we couldn't notify those parents immediately. To be able to create, so if a classroom is affected by something, just to let the parents in that classroom know. There's a lot of ways that we need to be able to identify information. And because it's not linked to our system, we can't sort it in those ways in order to get out those group-based identifications. And so that is a pretty big need that we have right now. It's just the functionality of Blackboard is very limited, and we've come up against that on numerous occasions.
Now, my last question is, Gina, I guess for you. I'm assuming there will be parents who will need some assistance, some tech support, some who are not really used to apps. I mean, can they navigate it on their own, or what if they need help?
We haven't really discussed that. Most people can, they'll download this app just like they download any other app on their phone. And when it comes up, it will have our logo. It will have the icons. You can pick your school that you're more interested in. You can see that. So I think it'll be pretty easy to navigate, and downloading it will be no different than any other app off your phone.
Or their student will do it for them.
Yeah, and I'll put on the website how-tos, and then they can go there.
The only thing that bothers me about this is the lack of an actual contract for purchase. That bothers me to some degree, that we don't have that in the packet. I understand that there's an offer to acceptance, and they have a proposal. If we choose to accept it, that technically is a handshake contract. But normally what we would have is we wouldn't have a confidentiality agreement. We would have an actual purchase contract, and we don't have that. Is that something this company doesn't do?
I do not know the answer to that, because I came in only on the app side. And
Yeah, and
Edgelink is.
I don't know, because Alexis gathered this information.
And while you're looking for that, do you have any information, reviews about confidentiality, security? Those are always ongoing issues.
I had not looked with the Edgelink app to see any of that information. I do know that we asked them the other day about if they're collecting any data, and they do not collect anything outside of their app or what we build as the app. So if we want to know how many clicks or taps of the food service app or the menus or that, we can ask to track those types of things, but it is not tracking any personal information off their phone from or anything like that. It's simply like a website that we can
Somebody
count
trying to
from what
hack-
we've been told.
Somebody trying to hack it. How do we
I-
have any?
I don't know the answer
any
to that.
incidents?
So their website is pretty basic. There's not a lot of information on their website.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with the confidentiality agreement here, number 2, that the provider, the limited use of de-identified, aggregate, or anonymized data for the purposes of research and development to improve services offered by the service provider. That's a big red flag for me, and
Actually, that's pretty typical and pretty common.
it doesn't make it not a big red flag for me.
So,
But it does, I'm sorry, it does further clarify that service provider may not transfer any of that data to a third party without the express written consent of the district.
so let me tell you why that's a very common thing. If you go to install a copy, and I'm just going to pick on Bill Gates for a minute, because right now he's trying to be a virologist, he needs to be picked on a little bit. But if you install a Microsoft product, and say Microsoft Word asks you if it's okay if they take dump reports from Crash or something along that line in order to improve the product. And the statement that's there is pointing more to that, because in paragraph 6 of the confidentiality agreement, it says the service provider is prohibited from mining data for any purposes other than agreed to in writing by the parties, which is why the contract is important.
Right.
Data mining or scanning of user content for the purpose of advertising or marketing to anyone is prohibited. Service providers shall not use data to advertise or market to anyone without the express written permission of the district. So that tells me that they're thinking about this. And
Does that include Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Google?
we're not posting to those things. We're taking a feed off of it.
Okay.
This
I'm not
is,
sure of that though, because I don't see a contract.
I understand.
And then as far as the underlying agreement that Mrs. Cohen was asking at the beginning of this discussion, I believe that's the agreement that when you click on, I agree to the terms of service, they're talking about the parties. I believe that's between the parent who's putting the app on their phone and EduLink.
No,
It says this agreement shall be in addition to any underlying agreement for goods and services entered into between the parties, which I read as parent app provider.
well, we're the app provider. We're actually paying for the app. We would be the owner of the app.
EduLink is providing the actual app.
We are paying for a service. We would own the product.
I understand that, but
No, I'm not trying to split hairs. And this is Mrs. Cohen's point. Mrs. Cohen actually has a very valid point to this. If personally identified information or protected information on a student were to get out through this process, the district would be liable in a much bigger way than EduLink would be. EduLink would be liable for their faulty software, but we're the ones putting the data out there for everybody to see. And because we're using our own internal streams to do this, we would bear the brunt of any liability for any type of a data breach in one of these things.
But we are providing the app to parents if they choose to use it.
Correct.
Yes.
But it's not a waiver of our liability for student data.
See, what I don't want to do is use that argument, because when you say the responsibility is on the parents to accept that terms and services, to download that app after you've sold it as being this really easy way to do everything. Have you ever read through one of those terms and services
Not
agreements? Okay, well, we should before we sell our kids out, because that's what we're doing with the technology.
Do you read the terms of service every single time you put something on your phone?
I don't put anything on my phone.
You don't have any apps on your phone? You don't have to show me, I have to take your word for it.
And I don't use Google. There's my phone.
Okay.
So the terms and services of all these agreements are more than what anybody can understand. You would have to have a legal attorney there telling you what you're agreeing to. And that's fine. When you're an adult, you're making that decision. But when you're doing it for young children, you know, this information is being collected, it's being used. And, you know, that's what brought me into the school district. And it's not because I understand it, trying to, but I just think we need to be a lot more thoughtful. And just because it makes it more convenient doesn't make it ethical, doesn't make it right that we put our kids in this position. And I would ask everybody, there's a video out there, Harvard professor, Dr. Shoshana Zuboff, Zuboff, on surveillance capitalism. And it might be really smart for all the parents to watch that before they download anything for their kids. But I would like to see a contract for this before we went any further, because I just can't trust it without seeing the actual contract. At least I can read the contract.
I have a question. So I know this is an app in addition to whatever Blackboard does, but doesn't Blackboard provide the same opportunities for having our information out, you know, by virtue of being online on the,
No, it doesn't work with synergy.
Two completely separate discussions. We're talking about using an EduLink product to replace Blackboard, and we're talking about purchasing an additional EduLink product in addition to their Blackboard level product to act as a clearinghouse point for district information.
So what goes now to the parents through Blackboard is not,
EduLink would give us finer control over what goes out to the parent as opposed to what Blackboard is doing.
The what goes out to parents is simply either an email, a text, or a phone call.
Yeah, if we were just doing the one part, that would be different. But we're doing the second part, which is, you know.
thank you.
So can we take a look at a contract?
And a copy of the terms and services that everybody would have to accept in order to download it.
And then where does that put your timeline as far as something that we vote on this tonight?
So, we actually had the price proposals, for the notification services and the app separately. We would like to start the notification services as soon as possible, to help, while we have the administrative assistants here, practice. And so that is more important to us, versus, the app
Secondary.
is secondary.
I mean, I think they could email you these two items tomorrow.
Mrs. Fleming, who seconded the motion?
Kathy Cox.
I'll withdraw my motion if you withdraw your second.
And can you tell me why?
I'm gonna split this.
What was?
I'm gonna split the motion. I'm gonna move that we approve the notification system tonight,
Okay.
and that we revisit it a later, postpone and revisit a later date,
I would prefer that not happen. I prefer that we vote on this tonight, that, time is of the essence, that we have a lot of information that we need to get to parents as soon as possible.
With respect, Madam President, Mrs. Festa just said that we could actually postpone the app.
Then there is the notification.
The notification system is what needs to be done as soon as possible.
Then I misunderstood. Didn't you say that this would be the ideal time for administration to practice this?
It would be the ideal time to practice the notification services. The app we can work on over the summer, and so I will have that back to you. If that is the choice that you're making, I will have that back to you with the contract.
I would withdraw my second.
Okay.
I withdraw my motion. And I move that we approve the unlimited notification services from EduLink.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion on this?
Will you still be providing a contract for this?
Yes, I have notes to myself.
Okay.
I do have 2 questions about this item.
Okay.
The one is from William Beckman. It says, will the app allow you to send text to phones directly as well?
Yes.
Yes, and
I would assume it's tied to their parent notification. So, the parent notification piece is the main part that
It
will be,
says the
part of
ability
the
to
app.
launch.
So whatever notifications would go out to the other ways would just be going through this in replacement of a Blackboard notification.
And then Stephanie Hoffman sent in, notification apps have been used to alert parents on where to pick up students during active shooter events, Saugus High School in Santa Clarita, California. It sounds similar to the police and the city and police department apps. That's it.
So, but this, when I read the seamless connection between the student information system and InTouch notification service, what exactly are we giving them access to in the SIS system? Back to the contract. No.
So it would be email addresses, phone numbers. We would be pulling that data so we could contact families.
Same
Because
thing
that
at Blackboard.
system has a lot of data in it. So it would just be name, email, cell phone.
The information we need to contact. It would also have to be things like grade, bus, so we could do groups. Because that's the problem that we have now, is we're not able to drill down to anything because it doesn't know any type of student. So if we want to send a message to seniors, we have to hand enter all of that. If we want to send a message to Mrs. Smith's 4th grade, we're not able to do that. So this would be able to look at the data of where the kids belonged.
This would, and speaking as a parent with the deluge from COVID-19 and again, over communication is a wonderful thing. In a crisis, you should be over communicating. But if it's email message, text notification, and being on the board, I get it all. And so I'm seeing all the schools and all of that. Having something like this, I think that if we really thought it through, we could take that replication of communication and potentially shrink it into groups, which would make it a much more valuable system in contacting parents with pertinent, relevant information, as opposed to having the deluge that we have.
If you don't mind, I'd like to, Dr. Stone coming from a different school system, having the same issues that we have, do you have any comments or insight on how valuable this could be?
We had some of the same issues with Blackboard, so did move away from them as well. And for that primary reason is that having that availability to get to the specific groups that need the information was much more helpful.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will add one more point that I guess I'm just reiterating something I said before, but I would not have a problem approving the app tonight based on the fact that it is the parents and consenting adults who are downloading this app and who is simply being made available to them and not forced on them in any way.
Now we would need a person to do that.
Well, I'm just saying my point of view, so if we voted this one down, I would
Okay.
remove, but I'm ready to vote if everyone else is.
I guess I'm just surprised at the kind of, we're talking about a serious thing, and it's always, well, it's more convenient. We need to train our admins, and we need to do this, and there's never seems to be any discussion about the intended consequences of what this data is going to do to your kids, to everybody out there's kids. And we're seeing it if we look, but we don't even discuss it.
I
And
think
it's,
we've discussed security issues in the
I
past.
mean,
I think we have, several times actually.
okay, to your satisfaction.
What's an unknown?
And I have to weigh out, you're talking about security from a data point of view. I also have to think about security from a physical point of view. Being able to communicate in the moment to parents is a valuable protection of their security as well.
Just like shutting down our country to make sure that we can save one person, right?
That's not what we're talking about.
It's
We're talking
kind of the
about,
same
this is
thing.
what's on the agenda.
Kind of the same thing.
This is what's on the agenda.
Okay.
And
I
this
think
is
it's that important.
actually,
I just wish you weren't so blasé about it, as if my concerns are just mine. There's tons of people out there that are screaming from the rooftops about these same concerns. So it's not just me.
I think I agree with Mrs. Roman
Of
about
course.
the fact that it's consenting adults, it's not for the children.
Have you seen the student information system? Have you ever been in the student information system? Do you have any idea how much information they have on you and your husband and your students?
well, we fill
And
out
they-
the forms and turn those in. They
That's
know
right. Well,
where
there's
we're-
more than just what you filled out in that information. So there's a lot of this very sensitive data in that system. And the
And
idea
yet
that,
I've never experienced a problem with it. I've never had a data breach. And I'm not saying that that couldn't happen. And you're right that that is a concern to take into account. All I'm saying is I have competing interests to balance out the interest of protecting students in a way that lets their parents know important information as it's happening. That to me outweighs some of the things that you're talking about, especially because I don't have a lot of incidents of my own personal security being breached. I
So-
don't feel, I guess you haven't compelled me that this is something that I should value above everything else.
well, I guess I don't understand what we haven't been able to communicate to parents. Like, I don't understand the urgency. I was a parent. I know a lot of parents. I get the text messages for every single school on Blackboard. I mean, where is this big communication breakdown that we've got to do what we're gonna do without even having all the information in order to make be able to vet out an actual contract?
This is a contract.
I don't think it is.
Actually, it's not. It's a confidentiality agreement. And while you will point to the fact that confidentiality contract is, or agreement is a contract, it is not a contract to procure services. It is a contract that simply states what their confidentiality policy is and that we have to agree to. I would ask you what the urgency is in approving the entire package.
I will vote tonight. I'm just making the statement that I would approve.
But
the entire
Madam
package.
President, I've asked you a question.
And
I asked you what the urgency was in voting this evening on the application. Because the application, according to staff, is not an urgent matter.
And I didn't say that it was. I only said that I would be willing to vote on that tonight to approve it, if that's the way the vote came down.
The other, and the last thing I want to point out is this is what I do for a living. I completed a PCI level 1 audit 2 weeks ago. I'm putting phishing emails out to test businesses in town. I do security for a living. Anything can be hacked at any time. Anything. There is no real security. All you're doing with your security measures is slowing someone down. And when we start talking about HIPAA and credit card numbers under PCI and your social security numbers under SOX, I put student data up in the same realm as those, especially when you have notes and things like that that parents have put in about them in the system. So yes, I take this very seriously. I don't want to see a contract on that app because it's not a notification system. It is a gateway into everything else we do. And so if the app doesn't have the right things behind it and you go and you click and somebody has ghosted that app on your phone and you go in to make a payment with your credit card on the school's payment website for the food service, I think it's Titan, and your credit card number gets taken because of that, or personal identifying information about your child gets put out because of that, you're going to be up in arms about it. And rightly so. I think taking a moment on something like a phone app or a tablet app and making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's on the contractual end of this is very important because that data is something that should be protected. And so
I don't disagree with any of that.
and
This lays out for me how that data will be treated in a way that satisfies me.
it doesn't satisfy me, and I do this for a living.
A lot of people in this room do this for a living, or work with technology for a living.
I don't just work with it, I remediate it. I look at it, I secure it, I have to tell major banks and financial institutions that it's secure, I have to tell medical facilities it's secure. I have to do my job the right way. And what I'm seeing in front of me doesn't dot the I and cross the T to do that.
Well, this is why we vote.
Yes. Any further discussion? Can you reread the motion on the table?
To approve.
That's okay.
I already put my page. Approve the notification services for Mitchell.
Are we ready to vote?
Nicole Cohen. No. John Maston.
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes.
Artiana Alliar.
Yes.
Lisa Roman.
Yes. Item 6.11, approval of vouchers, student activity funds, and auxiliary funds. And this is presented by Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it's recommended the board approve vouchers for March of 2020, as well as student activity and auxiliary funds for February 2020.
Do you have a motion on item 6.11?
I move we approve 6.11 as presented.
Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion?
Did you get your second?
Kind of interrupted, sorry.
John Nestor,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Archana Aliyar,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Lisa Roman.
Yes. We're on to our informational reports. I'm sorry. Oh, did you have more?
Do you want me to read the emails at this time?
We have,
Yes.
we need to read the name.
I have a number of emails. The first one is from Christine Adams. I am reaching out from the heart. I'm a parent of twin girls getting ready to graduate. Today is a tearful day as an email from the superintendent that has circulated confirmed the decision to have a virtual graduation. Students are distraught and have missed out on so much. Please do not allow admin to make this decision without hearing safe ideas. Open their hearts to the thought of a socially distant ceremony. These kids deserve it. I remember my graduation like it was yesterday. A teacher and I were talking and it was her idea of a socially distanced graduation ceremony with no audience. Just live stream it for families. Although I hate the thought of not being there, this would give kids the ceremony experience. Then yesterday was shared that the US Air Force had this type of ceremony. Maybe even make it possible for parents to purchase a copy of the live stream. Please consider this idea. Sadly yours, Christine Adams. The next one. To whom it may concern. First, I want to say that I hope you are all staying safe and healthy during these times. My daughter is a senior at Lake Havasu High School. She's a student body treasurer and very involved student leader on campus. I'm aware there is a meeting going on tonight having to do with the ceremony. Most of the kids and parents are with the idea that having a graduation ceremony on a later date when everything is somewhat better and goes along with social distancing and taking all the precautions necessary. I've had 2 other boys graduate from LHHS and the graduation ceremony is a huge milestone and such an amazing moment that I do not want the class of 2020 to miss out on. I'm sure you're receiving much input on all of this. However, I just want to say everyone is for the idea to just wait and have a regular ceremony. Many other surrounding schools around the country are doing the same thing. My other son is graduating ASU this year and thankfully they have the option of joining in on the December graduation ceremony. We will be joining him and we are thrilled he is going to walk across the stage. I hope you consider waiting and letting the LHHS class of 2020 do the same thing even if it is late this year. Please take into consideration their 14 years of hard work in academics and sports and everything. It is unfortunate and sad what is happening to them. Please do not take away this ceremony from them. A virtual one is not the same. It is not significant enough. Thank you for letting me give my opinion. I hope you take it into consideration. I hope we get through this together. Have a great day and please stay safe. Best, Jesus Frausto. The next one is from Gloria Sneed. I have been telling Kelsey to hang in and assured her that the district board high school would come up with something. I had hoped that the kids would have an opportunity to express their concerns and offer ideas. I believe it was stated in the paper that this would be the case. I just heard that student council was denied the chance to even present their ideas to the board at today's meeting. I'm so disappointed. Cities across the country are being creative and satisfying the guidelines, which by the way, will likely be relaxed by May 21st based on the new guidelines for reopening. I just don't understand shutting down the kids and their ideas. Why can't something other than a Zoom meeting or PowerPoint be a possibility? Why can't a postponement be a possibility? Why can't no audience be a possibility? Maybe have someone stream it live for families, but allow kids to have something. Please consider some other options. The newspaper and radio station are all going out of their way, and it feels like the school board district is not. There are parents that will help. There are businesses that will help. I'm asking you to please consider some other options. Thank you, Gloria Sneed. The next one is from Maria Lugo. Hello and good evening. There's been a lot of talk about graduation for the high school seniors. I have 2 granddaughters who are seniors this year and will be graduating. One of them has plans for college and the other does not. So for them, this will be their only chance to walk across the stage and celebrate their accomplishment. I understand that a PowerPoint is being put together in lieu of graduation and would like to inquire about the possibility of the delayed graduation that could be modified for safety concerns. When stay-at-home orders have been lifted. My grandkids have expressed to me that they understand if something like this is possible, it would likely have to be done without any spectators, and they are okay with that. As seniors, the cancellation of all their senior activities have been devastating for them. As a grandparent, I'm willing to help in any way I can. Thank you for the consideration, Maria Lugo. The next one is from Becky Allegard. Hi, I am a mother of a senior this year, and I am saddened how quick the district is to put out there that there will not be a graduation, but a possible virtual graduation, rather than a postponement or another way to allow these kids to walk at a later date. Less tickets handed out, doing A through L than M through Z like the college sometimes do. I know it's a little early to give up on these kids' dreams of walking and receiving their diplomas. They have already lost prom and grad night. Please do not be so quick to cancel graduation too. They do not want a parade. Please hear all of us parents and know that we will do anything we can do to help make this special for them. Open up your hearts, put yourself in their shoes. Don't be so quick to make a decision until the state even knows what's going to happen. Be positive and hopeful for those kids to have a delayed commencement. Don't take that away just yet. There are many safe ideas to make this happen, and some virtual showing or a parade. I know all of us parents are willing to even sacrifice being there as long as we can have it streamed, but let the kids walk. I hope you will take the time, these emails serious, and discuss and please consider the options at a later date. Thank you for your time, Becky Allegard, mother of a 2020 graduate. Next one is from Krista Pasquale. Please bring up having a high school graduation for our seniors. They deserve it. Why can't we have graduation in June sometime? I don't think it's fair. We don't have a lot of COVID-19 problems in our town. We could have immediate family members only, not even a full ceremony, just let the kids walk and receive their diplomas. Thank you for your time, Krista Pasquale. The next one is from Barbie Dye Slezak. Hi, I'm emailing you so the board will put graduation discussion on the agenda. These kids have the right to have something better than the PowerPoint you are all setting up. My senior has worked so hard for these 13 years. It's only right that you hear the kids out. Sincerely, Barbie Dye Slezak. The next one is from Angela Thornhill. I'm an LHHS senior parent, and I wanted to voice my concerns about the class of 2020 graduation. This is a time where things are out of everyone's control, and it's understandable. I know our school administrators are dealing with so much. It's been my understanding that our class student government has been asked to come up with some creative ideas, and then the administration has shut them down, telling them nothing is feasible. I'm here because our kids need to be fought for. I understand that we can't have a regular graduation ceremony, but right? And it's not, but the kids can still wear their cap and gown, walk across the stage and receive their diploma properly. Being videoed and photographed and then putting a video ceremony together with it all. A video of a speech, the choir, and a list to graduate names is just not the right thing to do. It's not honoring them. There's so much that have been taken away from them already. Even a socially distanced ceremony live stream for families is a great idea, like the Air Force Academy did. We are asking for something proper. Please help us honor our class properly. Sincerely, Angela and Mike Thornhill.
So was there a shutdown of something that we're unaware of?
Just to clarify for people who might be viewing this, we don't have this item on the agenda. Graduation ceremonies are not something that are governed by the board. We only decide policy matters. So the administration, and I will turn this over to our superintendent in a minute, but the administration is working on developing a plan, and a lot of that work happens behind the scenes. And so I will say I do not know at this time of any concrete decisions. So I'd like to turn it over to.
So without addressing all of the statements that were made, there were a few things that in general I heard. One of them was postponing to a later date. And so I do want to share that in having that discussion, we have several issues, and one of them is simply the heat in our town as it gets later in the year. We've also had feedback from several parents who say that's a great idea, but now my kid won't be able to attend because they're going off to wherever it happens to be. And so if we postpone, we also lose some families. And we do have the issues of just, we don't have an enclosed arena in order to do that. As far as graduation itself, I do want to share. It appears as though the perception is that we don't have a heart for the fact that our kids are going to miss the ceremony and that they're missing a lot at this point in time. And the reality is that nationwide this is happening. It's not just happening in Lake Havasu. So we have been talking a lot about all of the options that are out there. I will share just personally how I have approached this in terms of thinking about it and the various options. We have an obligation in the processes that we put forward, whatever those ceremonies are, whatever those actions are going to be, that we have to keep the greater interest of our students and our community in mind. And so I was very aware of the student council proposal. The student council had proposed 2 options for graduation, as well as several other things that could be done to honor our graduates. Those options basically were that we have a ceremony without an audience. And so we have had that conversation. We've had it in a number of ways. And that it was also being brought up that the Air Force did a similar ceremony where they had a graduation with no one attending. The Air Force Academy is a little bit different situation from us. First of all, they have a secure facility. And so they can do that without having an audience come in. I think you've all been to our stadium, and I don't want to say that any of the parents who are supporting this would do this, but we have many families who, if we said we're going to do a graduation, we're going to spread the students out 6 feet apart, they would be lining the fences, they would be on the sidewalks, they would be driving around, and those are things that we cannot control. They're a dangerous situation, and they do bring groups together where we've been asked not to have groups together. The other issue is, even with having them 6 feet apart, we're still being asked to put 400 students on the field. And the reality is that we don't have the opportunity to protect students from each other either. So when we go back to the Air Force Academy as an example, those students have lived there, they've lived in the dorms. They have actually been isolated together. And so it was pretty predictable that they would not be contaminating each other. If you watch the ceremony, they were sitting apart, but then at the end, they were gathering in groups. And so the social distancing piece of it, while it was observed, they had a little bit different situation because they were at very low risk for exposure from each other. And so we don't have that opportunity. And even with the 10 being lifted to go to 50, which is probably what will happen for May, that still doesn't allow us to put 400 students on the field. The other concern that I have, and I have to say this, the people who are most at risk are not our teenagers. And so from that standpoint, I can see that there would be some concern. However, they have people at risk who are living in their homes. The staff that we have that would need to be there to help run the ceremonies, to supervise, et cetera, have people who are at risk who are living in their homes. And I don't think that it would be responsible for us to expose all of those families to a risk that right now is so well contained. And so at this point in time, having an open ceremony in the field, even trying to not have an audience, I believe would be almost impossible for us to do. And I don't believe that we can ask our police department and others to try to enforce that no audience and no loitering on the sidewalk, et cetera. So that was the first option, and that's what we've talked about a lot. If things were to change, so let's say in the magic world, we're like Georgia and the governor says we're wide open, you can do anything you want starting tomorrow, we can put a graduation ceremony together in 3 days. That's something we've done over and over again, and we'd be more than happy to do should that occur. I'm not personally predicting that would occur, but that could happen. However, to do something else, we have to plan for it. And so what we have proposed is actually having all of the speakers come in and record their speeches. Mr. Becker recording the speecher and all of the honors. And then what the high school is trying to set up now is an opportunity to set up the stage and the backdrop and a schedule where kids can come in and walk across the stage, have their picture taken in their cap and gown, and receiving their, pamphlet. And that could be the photo that would be used in a video presentation that would be then presented to everyone. It is not the same as doing it that night. There's no question about it, but it would be a way that it would at least get them a chance to wear their gowns and to be recognized. And so we're trying to do as much as we can, along with a lot of other ideas for celebrations. And they're looking at, the seniors had some great ideas for without things to do out in the community, and Mr. Becker and his team are trying to make all of this happen. The second suggestion that came forward was to do a parade on a designated route where the students could drive through and make a parade. And so again, the biggest concern that I would have in this particular case, two big concerns. One of them would be student safety, and the second would be people again gathering, because a parade route could in no way pass by every student's home. And so other people would gather along the parade route to see. Then we also are putting 17-year-olds in cars driving around. They do things that are not smart. And parents who say, I remember my graduation, may also remember some of the things that kids did on graduation. And we have the concerns of students who aren't good drivers, who aren't paying attention, the possibility of accidents. We have, I would say we will have some students who are vaping or who are drinking or who are doing something that is not appropriate. And then we have many students who don't have cars, their parents don't have cars. We're finding right now with distribution of work, so it's not assuming everybody could have a car. And putting kids together in a car to go through a parade is not a good idea. And then if they were all to come to the high school to pick up their driver's license, to pick up their diploma, then we'd have a long line of people because we'd have to check every driver's license, we'd have to distance them. There are a lot of just logistical things that make this very difficult to do. On top of all of that, we put liability on our district if anything happens in either of these events if we sponsor them. And so those are the reasons those two particular options are not being considered at this time. I think that the recognition that it would provide for those students puts too many other people at risk in order for us to make that happen. And so that's where we stand. I'm open to thoughts from the board. If you think that I've misread something, I would be happy to hear that.
So it's not a PowerPoint?
No, we had it actually was a wonderful list and it was divided into sections. I'm not aware of a PowerPoint.
Okay.
That was presented, it was presented to me as well. And I know that the seniors are not understanding this, but we had already talked about those ideas. They've had ideas coming. We've been studying what people are doing across the country. I have been involved with the meeting with all of our superintendents in our county, and I do know that they're all looking at doing the same thing that we're doing as far as putting together some sort of a video and actually showing everybody, broadcasting it. And then they're also looking at, with the seniors, when they call their name and their picture comes up, it would also list some of the things that they've identified, such as, what are the favorite things, whatever they identified through the yearbook. There's some survey questions that they ask them. So those kinds of things would make it more personal. But it's not a situation that we're enjoying being in at all.
So it's always much more fun to throw the party.
Yeah.
I did hear one along the lines of the postponement idea, which, as has been pointed out, comes with its own problems because people do tend to scatter after graduation. But I do, at the University of Arizona, they are planning a special celebration over their homecoming weekend to honor their 2020 graduates. And so this is not an instruction in any way, but an idea that might apply in the future.
Yeah, I think that, again, we've been waiting to put out a formal announcement to see what happens with the April 30th deadline. Right. And so, but we have to start planning if we're not going to be able to do the regular graduation, which is what we anticipate. So the formal announcement hasn't gone out, but should it turn out that we're having to do, as we believe we're going to have to do, a virtual graduation, there's been a lot of very interesting suggestions of how we could then also celebrate And that's another good idea. We've talked about something at the beginning of the year prior to when teachers come back, where the graduates could all go through and see their teachers. There were some suggestions along those lines. The homecoming idea is an excellent idea. I do think there are ways that we can provide some sort of a celebration for students that doesn't look exactly like the night of graduation, but would also be
It might be easier to have that gathering at Christmas over winter break rather than at homecoming, because kids at homecoming is to break away from college and that kind of thing. From our schedule is difficult, but usually 2 weeks of Christmas are the same period of time. I mean, that's getting late, but at least they would have a gathering. I don't know. There's so many variations of these things. And right now, we just don't have enough information to know what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
But again, I do want to say thank you to you and the different principals at the different sites, because I know a lot of hard work is being done and it happens behind the scenes. And just because you don't have something formal to announce all the time doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work being done. So thank you for, I know that you have been probably sifting through lots of emails and hearing lots of.
And I really do. In the high school, they've been getting a whole lot of ideas shared with them. I know they've been talking about them. But the main things that we keep talking about are the potential risk that we would put other people in would be irresponsible for us at this time.
Any other discussion on this topic?
Go on the right information, because it's not really a discussion, it was information. If I may, I would like to also just go back to our donations for a few minutes, because we haven't had a chance to share that in a while. It reminded me of it with graduation. The other thing that we've had is our radio stations have offered to do some unique things as well. Murphy Broadcasting has offered to read all our graduates' names over the radio the night after graduation. And I know that Radio Central has talked about doing some things as well in terms of producing. But on our list for donations this month, this is back for March donations, which are typically those things that come through mostly in February and March. We have over almost $35,000 in donations just for that month in terms of goods and dollars. We get a whole lot of free advertising, and I really want to thank Radio Central, because they got out the information on the lunches, making sure our families got fed. They ran ads on all of their stations, and again, we get the donation from them as far as what that would have been billed. Also, all of our parent organizations are continually working for our students, and so we see a lot of those this month, but also our businesses. Consistently, our businesses are coming out and supporting our schools, and so, and that was brought up in the comments through the email. Our businesses want to help us, and they have offered some things. We've had some creative ideas. I don't want to let them all out right now. To recognize our graduates in a unique way that would be different from any other graduating class. And we've had a couple of businesses offer to perhaps fund those ideas. And so they're out there, and we appreciate their support. So I do want to recognize all of those. And then finally, I did want to clarify, and I apologize, Mrs. Cohen, when you asked me about the student handbooks being paper.
Yes.
I do want to say we're not printing enough to hand to every student. It would be for those who are requesting them in a physical format that we will provide those, absolutely.
I assume that's what you meant,
Okay,
based on
good.
the way it was written, that it was electronic.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thank
That's
you.
the primary form of distribution. So. Okay. And then I think the final thing I would like to share, just in the last 3 weeks, we've had several deaths in our district, student deaths as well as adults. And one of the difficult things about working from a distance is you don't have that support from each other in the settings. And so I know that a lot of our families are struggling, a lot of our students are struggling because they can't necessarily interact with their friends. And Mr. Rezin, you mentioned the communication, and I'm hoping that that what our community is feeling from our district right now is that we very much care about them, and we're here to support them, even in this time. Even though we aren't going to necessarily be able to pull everybody together in the field for graduation.
And there are counseling resources available.
Absolutely.
For friends, you know, the kind of thing that if it did happen during a regular school session, there probably would be a lot of friends who would like to talk to somebody, and so that is still available.
I just appreciate the team that this district is. It's just been amazing.
Any information items from directors?
Do you want to announce new APs? New APs.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry. I do have, want to congratulate that we did approve in the personnel report our 2 new assistant principals this evening. And so we have Mrs. Amy Barney, who is going to be an assistant principal at the high school. And she has been in the district for several years. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm going to send out an email tomorrow. But her husband teaches in the district, and her daughter goes to Oro Grande Classical Academy. And so she's very involved in our community, and will be an excellent choice for the high school. And then Jen Black has been selected as the assistant principal for Thunderbolt Middle School. Jen was a teacher of the year. She was an elementary teacher at one time and has been at Thunderbolt for the last several years. Interestingly, both of them are math teachers who are going to be difficult to replace. And so, but I think they're both excellent additions. And Jen has 2 older children, one who is on an exchange and is stuck in Holland, I think. I can't remember, I'll have to look in the list. And then her high school student who's at home doing his math with his mother. So we're excited to have those and welcome them to our team.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've seen several funny memes with kids lined up at the table saying, "You think you have it rough? Try being quarantined with your own principal or math teacher or whatever it is." Okay, any congratulations to both Mrs. Barney and Mrs. Black. Any other information items from directors?
I just want to comment on the preschool. The preschool playground at Havasupai. The Head Start, if you haven't been by the school, they've got the equipment set up, so we're excited about that opportunity for improvement, so. Thank you.
Any information items from board members?
I was originally gonna have a good friend of mine, Annie Lickman, here today because it's Holocaust Remembrance Day. So I just wanted to say my heart goes out to all the Holocaust survivors that are shut in at home, who could use a phone call from their friends and family. Anyways, she's 91, she's amazing. She's like a second grandma to me, so I love you, Annie. Sorry you couldn't be here with us. That's all.
I did have one thing. I was able to participate in a webinar that ASBA put on about conducting board meetings in this environment. And one of the things that it did talk about was making sure that the public has access, regardless of whether they have access to streaming services. And one of the things that it recommended was providing people the option with calling in a listen-only format. And ASBA conducts their webinars through, I believe it's GoToMeetings, which is, I think, a very effective resource because it allows you to put documents visually on people's screens. So I just wanted to throw that out there as, depending on how long this goes on, and we're doing meetings in this virtual format, that might be something that we want to consider. Good for me. Anybody else? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Martina Maliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.